Hi again then folks, and welcome back of course to day 5 of 6 already of Special Projects Pack number 5. This time for the 8th build. This is another kind of hybrid build, more so than the Porsche that we did earlier on in the week. That one was more so a visual hybrid. This one is a hybrid in the opposite way. So the livery is of course inspired by real Polo. Again, you can probably hear the hay fever is in full bloom, so apologies for that. But this is, as I said, a hybrid between a realistic livery, a replica, and of course you can click the link below to add it to your library if you want this particular look. But in terms of its spec, it's completely fictional. And the car itself, as far as I'm aware, doesn't exist. I call it the Polo GT rally car. So it's just like a blank slate kind of, you know, Gran Turismo original machine kind of thing. Just this imaginary car, specs that don't really line up with any particular kind of rallying. And this really is one of those occasions where I wish, and I hope this is something that Gran Turismo has in future, we really could do with drivetrain swaps. Because especially for stuff like rally builds, it makes such a huge difference. Now, of course, that's not to say that front-wheel drive can't be fun for rallying, and we'll get in a second to how to use this car most effectively. As far as the tuning, it's quite a simple one, because even though the specs aren't that crazy, I've pretty much done everything you can to push it to the limits of what this engine can do, what this car can do. I could certainly see this car having a swap of some kind in the future, but we'll have to wait and see. So we've got stage 1 weight. As you can see, I do have the sports silencer, but you don't need it, because I skipped straight past that and went to the racing one. I just wanted to see the kind of difference that each exhaust had, so you don't need that one for this. As far as club sports, you want your bore out, your high lift cams, of course the stage 2 weight, dirt tyres if you do plan to of course take it off-road, the power restrictor and ballast are always handy to have. For the semi-race, we've got, again, you don't need the silencer, the fully customised computer, the crank. I've gone for the mid-range turbo. Of course, high range does give you a little bit more power, but for rally it's just not that effective. And for some people you may even want to sacrifice a little bit of power. You do gain quite a bit of torque and go for the low range. It's not a bad idea at all. One of the main reasons why I didn't do that is because it's front wheel drive. And the last thing you need in a front wheel drive rally car is more low end torque. You know, it's already got enough understeer to deal with. So I opted not to do that, but you could always have both and try them both and see what you think. Of course you need the fully customised diff. I opted to actually increase the rigidity on this particular one. Stage 3 weight loss as well. As far as the racing stuff, of course it's appropriate to have anti-lag on a rally build. We've got the polished ports, balance tuning, stroke up, race intercooler, filter, silencer, manifold, pads and discs. Like I always say, doesn't really matter what discs you go for, just go for whichever one you like the look of pretty much, including carbon ceramics if you want to. Race clutch and flywheel, suspension, transmission. Unfortunately you can't take the weight even lower. And then for the extreme stuff, as I often like to do with my rally builds, I've gone for the steering angle adapter and the hydraulic handbrake, which is typically more of a drifting thing, but it does come in handy for a rally car as well. And for the ultimate stuff, I mean, you could go for the titanium rods as well. That is actually an addition since I first built this car. So I tell you what, we may as well fit that right now. So I hadn't already done that, but why not? It is now available, and every little helps in terms of power. As far as the visuals, of course, it comes with the livery that this player did, so depending on which one you want to download, this one or somebody else's, that'll depend, you know, and vary wildly. We've just had a change in points, of course, with that slight hike in power, but still a similar level to what we were working with anyway, and, you know, it doesn't matter too much for dirt anyway most of the time. So, of course, we've got those tyres fitted. For the suspension, we've got 105mm front and rear. 4 for the anti-roll, 20 on the compression, so very low, 30 for the expansion, so also as low as it can go, but then the frequency of the springs is the opposite, so much higher, 2.85. I've gone for no camber, front or rear. Sometimes it can help. For this particular build I opted not to do it. We have a heck of a lot of tow, which of course makes a huge difference to an understeery front-wheel drive car, especially off-road, and totally, you know, in line with that, towing way out, all the way out on the rear, for the exact same reason. That actually encourages the back end to step out. So I haven't tried this thing on the tarmac, but it should handle, you know, awfully on tarmac, because it's not designed for that at all. It's designed purely for rally. For the diff, I've gone for 30, 30 and 60, as you can see. As far as the transmission, I've gone for perhaps longer gearing than you might think, 260 on the auto setting. If you want super close gears, you could go for that, but I personally find that sometimes, especially when you're already bouncing off the red line as much as you are in a front-wheel drive car that's struggling for traction, sometimes having longer gears can actually help free up what otherwise would be wasting more time changing gear, especially when dirt driving in Gran Turismo is one of the relatively few occasions where even for someone like me who prefers autos, I will often use a manual, because you just need that extra level of control. As far as the ballast, of course we haven't added any weight. It is a shame that you can't take the weight even lower, that would have helped. The ECU is not touched even. As far as the downforce, that is as high as it can go on the front, and then I'm basically just matching it on the rear. Anti-lag, of course, is turned on. You'll have to determine if you want it on weak or strong. And then as far as the rest, of course, you can see all of the stuff that we have done. All that remains, naturally, is to jump out onto a dirt course to show you what this little 350 horsepower beast can do. Now, if you could convert this to four-wheel drive, it would be a monster. It really would, and I would love to drive that, but unfortunately you just can't do that. So the question is, with a car like this, a very powerful front-wheel drive platform that is at the end of the day still a modified road car, not a full competition machine, how do you use it? How do you use it well? Well, first things first, as I alluded to, I would strongly recommend using a manual box, because it just gives you so much more control. I know many of you drive manual anyway, but even for people like me who don't usually, I would recommend it. And in terms of the overall driving style, you need to be totally counterintuitive when you're driving this car. You need to corner with a heavy use of the handbrake. Because what you're trying to do, and I've said this before with other front-wheel drive rally builds, you want to treat the car like those boy racers in car parks who put dinner trays under their rear wheels and slide around in like little Fiats. You want the exact same effect. That's why we've got so much toe on the back end as well, for the exact same reason. You want that back end to be sliding around, but here's where it gets counterintuitive. Don't back off the throttle through a corner. And that is very difficult to resist the urge, because you always have to do that. Now, of course, there are some times when you have to slow down, but for the majority of corners, you need that front-wheel drive momentum to keep the slide going, otherwise you will bog down. So if you intend to use any front-wheel drive rally car a lot, at least one that's got a decent amount of power, Citroen DS notwithstanding, you do need to kind of relearn how to drive to some degree, because it's so opposite to what you usually do. If you do put the time in though, you will be surprised how good a front-wheel drive rally car can be. This one is super compact, it is pretty light, it's certainly got more than enough power. So it is a lot of fun, and potentially you could even use it in some rally events if you wanted to, or just for fun. It's very much a novelty build, a hybrid of real and unreal, with my own flair in there as well, of course. So I hope if you do decide to use it, maybe you've got a Polo and you're not doing anything with it, I hope of course you have a ton of fun with it, and of course check out the other special projects that I've already done this week, and the final 2 already tomorrow. But for now, as always, thanks for watching.